Zoid. Freakazoid.
Freakazoid is
Like being young.
You're too old, Freakazoid.
I mean, everything was golden and wonderful.
Howdy, partner!
What is this? Hee-haw!
It's the happy cries of children in the winter.
No!
Look out for that truck, kids. Look out.
One day you wake up and you're in the middle of a colonoscopy.
The show is Freakazoid. What is it? I don't know. And now, something very special.
Steven Spielberg had already made a couple cartoon series with Warner Brothers Animation, starting with Tiny Toons and doing Animaniacs. And he kind of wanted to do something different. So he called my boss, Gene McCurdy, and he said that he might be interested in doing an action-adventure show next.
Bruce Timm and Paul Dini had come up with this character, this teenage superhero, and they conceived the Freakazoid show as a bit of comedy and a lot of action-adventure.
Paul and I were just throwing some ideas around. And we came up with this idea about this teenager who becomes a superhero, but the superhero is kind of a intense, frenetic, manic kind of superhero. The name Freakazoid just kind of jumped out at me. I don't even know where from. I said, oh yeah, Freakazoid, that might be an interesting name.
When they presented it to Steven, Spielberg, I've been to his house. I haven't, ever.
I don't get this. What is this? Dexter gets eaten and then fade out the end?
He sort of looked at it and was, I think, still thinking in the Animaniacs realm and where, you know, very comedy. So he really said, I'd like this to be more funny rather than serious and dark.
Years later, when we went back to doing more Batman episodes, the Creeper was in the same kind of vein as our original Freakazoid concept. That's a little bit more like what our original intention of the Freakazoid was going to be, and that's exactly what he would have sounded like.
They saw him more of a, I think it's like if the Joker were a good guy, that's kind of how they saw him, as this really edgy, kind of maniacal good guy that would vex the villains.
We interrupt this program to increase dramatic tension. Thank you. And now back to our program.
After a while, it became evident that Steven wanted to plus the comedy aspects of the show, and I think both Paul and Bruce felt more comfortable making it more action-adventure-y.
After about a month or two of working on the show with Steven, I just felt like I should probably just back away from it, because I didn't think I was going to be able to deliver the kind of show that Steven would be pleased with. So he had a really good working relationship with Tom Ruger on both Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. So Tom was brought in to redevelop Freakazoid basically from the ground up, and they kept a lot of my designs, some of the concepts, but then it all kind of got radically altered, and ultimately Steven was much happier, I think, with the final product.
How did I become involved in Freakazoid? I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember it was raining in Los Angeles back in January '95, just pouring. I mean, the streets were flooding, the creek was rising, my kids were floating away. Dads, help! And I was saying, hey, kids, I'm busy with Freakazoid. So I was writing a bunch of stuff that was over 2 pages, and I sent them off to Gene McCurdy and Steven. Gene thought it was very funny and liked it. Steven liked it, but he said, hey, how about a couple stories in here? So I think that's where both John McCann and Paul Rugg kind of roped it in and started creating these elaborate stories for
And I had to sort of come on board and try to figure out what this was going to be. And the answer was, we didn't know. And still don't.
When we came aboard Freakazoid, we had all of Bruce Timm's designs for not only Freakazoid, but for the Rogues Gallery of characters, not all of whom were named, but I mean, we had drawings of Candle Jack and Cobra Queen and the Lobe and lots of the other characters.
We had all the character models that we ended up using on Freakazoid, but we didn't know who these people were at that point. They were just a bunch of drawings, and we had to figure out who their persona was, you know. Did they like cake? He does. He does not.
The first drawing I did of Freakazoid, I had him on a unicycle juggling fish. And then I just started, like, Daffy's Duck Hunt. He was like just kind of woo-hoo-hoo and running all over the place.
Hi, I'm Freakazoid. Now these messages.
Que vida.
Freakazoid was going on the air in 95 September, fall. And in the shows that we had made at Warner Brothers previous to Freakazoid, we had had a really long lead time. Not the case with Freakazoid. We didn't have any real scripts completed until like February. And so we had 8 months to pull this thing together.
The way it's supposed to work is you think about a show for like 6 months and you do what they call a Bible. And the Bible is like, well, this character will be blue and float. And you come up with all the reasons why he's blue and float. And then you sort of add on, like his catchphrase will be Winnemucca or whatever. And you write all these things and it's all very, very clever. And then you start writing scripts based on all of that information. We didn't have a day to do any of that.
It was like if you jump off a cliff and then build the hang glider on the way down. It was a lot like that because there was all this. We had to figure out who the characters were and what the rules for this world were, and then we had to write episodes. And the clock was running already for production.
When Tom first told John and I, okay, you know, I'm going to be writing this pilot for Freakazoid, I need you guys to be thinking other thoughts. So I remember John and I spent about a week in our offices together trying to figure out how Dexter became Freakazoid. And we went through everything. And I remember we were both, wow, I think we got it now. And it was a garage door opener. So we ran into Tom's office, and Tom's in the middle of writing this pilot. And we go, Tom, we think we've figured out this whole thing about how he becomes Freakazoid. It's the clicker. And Tom looked at us like, I could care less. You guys are focusing on the wrong thing, damn it. I need you to be writing. I don't care. That's not what the show's about, you know?
I'm freaking out! I think he said the secret word.
And then we were like, oh, who cares? He says freak out. That was it.
When we did auditions for the show, Paul Rugg and John let some people to pursue the whole multi-personality quality that was Freakazoid.
And when we heard it, we were all, boy, we don't want him to be that way, because it was slightly annoying. But we didn't know what else to tell anyone. We had no clue what to tell people.
Surprise!
Ultimately, Paul Rugg, in giving kind of notes to the actors, we kept hearing Paul doing it, and it said, we thought, yeah, this is the guy.
I sure could go for a snow cone.
I think this is all true, or I've made it all up, but I recorded an entire dance of Doom. And what Tom said I should do, he says, just improv whenever you want. Just go nuts. Of course, John McCann wrote it, and I didn't want to improv on his line, so I figured before or after each line, I would go nuts and deliver the line as John McCann wrote it. So I just sort of started spewing, and I'm like, bleh, and I'm going, staff, and all this stupid stuff, and I thought, there is no way. This is the dumbest thing I've ever done.
Wait! I have an even better idea!
There's a point where Freakazoid hops on Cave Guy's head, and he starts chanting like he's like a rabbi.
My lady in the dress with the skirt. See, I don't know what the hell that was. Aloha, lady in the dress. The next thing I know, Tom played the tape for Steven, and Steven said, that's good, do it. And then I thought, well, now, that's great, I get to do the voice of Freakazoid. Well, I'm sure we're gonna redo Dance of Doom. And Tom goes, no. All that stupid stuff you did. And I went, oh, no. And then I remember it was with John McCann. We watched Dance of Doom, where I'm like going, lady in the dress, everybody down, shoo. And I remember looking at John and going, we are so dead. This is horrifying. And then Tom came in and said, is this great?
We definitely let the actors go off now and then, kept the mics open, and sometimes you find these little moments that you figure out a way to get them in the show.
We just, we drew around it.
I always knew I was good when Tom was like going, because I couldn't hear anything, but it was like, and then I went, okay, I'm gonna do more of that, because that's the response I want. This is what you didn't want to see from Tom.
I don't know if the other guys mentioned this. There was one of the recording engineers who could, then he'd hit his throat and get it down. And wow, did we not work the rest of that afternoon. Huh, man, and it resonates. You just...
I'll beat Jack Kennedy any day.
It really is a very zany show. It seems to defy logic at times. The stories are not told in a traditional linear sense.
I can't tell you how much from the beginning of page one, the scripts were always different. I mean, there was never a quintessential, this is the formula of Freakazoid. So, you know, as you were writing them, you would think about crazy things, pop culture things. I introduced an episode with Jack Valenti, who is president of the Motion Picture Association of America, because I know the kids love that. Bum, bum, bum. So I wrote that, and Steven read it, and the next thing I know, we got a call from Steven, or Tom did, and Tom came to my office and said, Steven wants more Jack Valenti. I'm like, wow, okay, more Jack Valenti. And then we got the call that Steven knows Jack Valenti, so we could get Jack Valenti to come to a recording. Another big plus for kids. So I wrote this whole thing in the middle of the episode where, out of nowhere, Jack Valenti would explain the rating system.
Now might be a good time to tell you all about the Motion Picture Association of America's fascinating rating system.
And I remember as I was writing it, I was almost like I was smiling because it was so stupid and so weird and so surreal, and I go, this is Freakazoid.
We never let the words, what next, bother us. We just, if it seemed funny, I don't know what to write. Well, put that down. Freakazoid doesn't know what to do, you know, and we'll board it and get some music under it and get it out the door.
That was kind of a neat way of going with the writers, because it was bringing a whole level that we had never done in animation before.
We just had a lot of fun. I mean, if we'd take an afternoon off and we'd go to the movies, we'd see something funny, we'd come back and we'd put it in, or we'd throw a reference in. You know, like we all went to see Ed Wood, Tom and Paul and I, and then we ended up, pull this string.
Pull the string!
One of the best things was making very serious people say funny things, like Ed Asner's having him say chubby boy.
Norma, it's Cosgrove. Give me a double chubby boy.
Having Ricardo Montalban say weenie.
Don't say the weenie word.
Those are what I take back and I go, wow.
Palm trees, hula girls, pineapples, hula girls.
Freakazoid, it's one of those shows that works on a lot of different levels. You know, they always say like Rocky and Bullwinkle and things like that. You know, you could watch it as a kid, and then when you're an adult, you appreciate it on a whole different level. Freakazoid is exactly the same way.
We did find it, and when the ratings came in, that our audience was skewing older than our target audience.
To be honest with you, for kids to see it, and this guy looks like a superhero, but he's not, and why doesn't he fly? Because he runs around with his arms in the air and he runs, and that bothers me. As a kid, I guess, you know, unless someone said, hey, guess what, that's a joke, then I think everyone would be, you know.
They put it at 8 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the afternoon. They shifted it all around. You know, we couldn't even find it, and we wrote the thing.
I think that a lot of people didn't understand what it was going in, and I think the time slot killed us. I think we were more of a teenage show, and there aren't a lot of Nielsen boxes in federal prisons. Had there been, I'm telling you, we would still be on the air today.
It's hard to tell why it didn't become like a big hit. It certainly has a cult following. To this day, I'm amazed people come up to me and say, oh yeah, and you worked on that Freakazoid show. And I'm like, wow, really? Because it was only on for those 2 years, and it's never been really rerun or anything. But there's been a lot of people ask me about it. It's like, oh, hey, when's it coming out on DVD? And, you know, it's like, wow, okay. So there is kind of like a real small cult following for the show.
Yoo-hoo! Are we done?
You always hear how, like, you know, the guys at Warner Brothers always make cartoons for themselves, you know, like the Chuck Jones and Friz Freleng and people like that. I think that's what we were doing on Freakazoid. I think Paul and John and Tom were all, you know, making these cartoons that they loved, that they wanted to do, and, you know, we got to be in on it.
We really got away with a lot. I have documented proof of that. I have no idea what I'm saying.
Freakazoid is its own special brand of animated comedy. We have learned a lot of stuff from Animaniacs, our experience on that, and we built, and we felt that with Freakazoid we made a slightly better mousetrap.
I'd like to say that each episode, with its quirkiness and its jumping around and its, you know, non sequiturs, was a carefully constructed allegory of the internal state of Freakazoid, mirroring his psychological and his emotional makeup, showing the teen thrust against his will into the role of superhero, while at the same time being a normal teenager fighting against his body, his family, his peers, and that each episode and the entire series was done with that in mind. I'm gonna say it anyway.
2 days is a testament to our stupidity and our greatness. I think the show's gonna stand up forever. Especially if people buy more of these. Then I think we got it. Call Steven. Let's try to get a movie out of this. You and me together.
So long. We're done.
Not quite. We're done.